This podcast is brought to you by Most Valuable Podcasts, leading the league in podcasting entertainment.
Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, children of all ages. This is a Fast Break Podcast. I'm your host, and in my rightful spot, Ricky Widmer.
Sorry.
Usurper of hosting.
The third Fast Break Podcast this week.
Yeah,
so
the third session of podcasts.
Third session of podcasts this week. We are happy to bring it to you. I'm Sean Anderson.
You know what's the funniest part about that?
What's that?
Our Knicks segment from the first one has still yet to go up.
There we go.
Because everything else has been going on.
We can't stop. Anyways, I'm Sean Anderson. Alongside me is Ricky Widmer.
What's up, what's up?
And Dave Oster.
Hey, everybody.
And we are happy to bring you our third Fast Break Podcast of the week. It's NBA free agency, so this is the dire time. We got to hit everything. I mean, there's so much news coming out. All the news hasn't even happened. I mean, Paul Millsap's still out there. Gordon Hayward's still out there. We're going to be talking about Gordon Hayward, where he'll be going. JJ Redick signed. We'll be talking about him and the 76ers. Amir Johnson also signed with the 76ers. And the third one, we're not sure yet, so we're not going to say what that topic is. We might be talking conferences. We might be talking about Paul Millsap, so we'll wait and see what happens out of that one. But, guys, let's jump in. We do have the new camera here on YouTube, so what's up, guys? Ricky helping us out there.
Hopefully no more blurriness.
Yes, hopefully it's stellar quality. But anyways, let's jump into it. Gordon Hayward is still a free agent. He just had a meeting with Miami. He's having a meeting, I think it was today, with Boston. Correct me if I'm wrong here.
Well, Brad Stevens showed up in Miami, so I mean...
He did, but when was the scheduled meeting?
They're still going to have a scheduled meeting on Sunday.
Okay, Sunday, okay.
Which is in
just making sure.
15 minutes.
Yes, so he had a meeting on Friday with Miami, I believe, and then Sunday it was with Boston, and then on Monday he's got it with the Utah Jazz, so giving his current team, or most recent team, the last chance to give him a pitch. They just signed Joe Ingles as well, one of his close friends, to a 4-year, $52 million contract. They also have the same agent. So looking at all this, there's teams on the table: Miami, Boston, Utah. We're not sure if he's going to make a decision on Monday or not, but where will Gordon Hayward end up? Not what's the best fit right now, but where will he end up, and what's your gut feeling?
My gut feeling now, and it is about 24 hours since I gave an actual prediction, I kind of feel like it's either Miami or Utah. And the reason being is because of the Paul George trade, like Dave and I talked about when we reacted to it. I just feel like Boston's the odd one out. That's why we obviously seen the desperate girlfriend pitch of like, hey, we're still here. I know you're in Miami, but I just wanted to come and see you type of a thing.
Again, why is Boston the odd team out right now?
Because for me, I look at it and I go, okay, the Jazz are obviously, if you go to the Jazz, you're going to have to compete with the now newly loaded Western Conference. Jimmy Butler's now there.
It just keeps getting more loaded.
Jimmy's there. Paul George is there.
Yeah.
CP3 and James Harden are on the same team. So things are realigning in the West for, like what me and Dave said yesterday, manifest destiny. And with the Jazz, you go ahead and you're going to have to say, okay, I got to compete against all that. The Celtics and the Heat, you don't have to deal with that. However, because the Celtics didn't get Paul George, you have to deal with, okay, I'm going to be the main scoring option, yes. But at the end of this year...
In Boston?
They're going to have to...
I think Isaiah Thomas
is still the number one.
However, he's probably going to be then gone at the end of the year.
So for the next 3 years, he'll be the main scoring option.
And that's, to me, I would have to look at that and go, there's a possibility I could lose Isaiah Thomas. Yeah, there's a possibility he could stay. But that possibility of him leaving... Plus, with an older Al Horford, I'd rather go to Miami where Whiteside is younger, Goran Dragic is there, and Goran Dragic has a longer shelf life contract-wise than Isaiah Thomas. And to me, I have more trust in Pat Riley than Danny Ainge to get shit done.
I understand the Pat Riley thing in some ways, just because he's brought free agents to Miami before, and then also
he's got a track record.
Well, and then also Miami doesn't have the state tax at all.
Right. So you're gonna get more money.
You're gonna get more money. However, I think Miami's the odd team out because yes, you have Pat Riley, yes, you have Eric Spoelstra, but Danny Ainge is still, I would say, a competent GM. It's not like he hasn't built a super team, not a super team, a team out in the Eastern Conference that's doing very well. I mean, a team that was the #1 seed in the Eastern Conference. You also have a guy named Brad Stevens who coached him in college. They have a building relationship. They have a very good relationship. So at least you have the coaching kind of connection there. And it's I don't see Gordon Hayward as a guy that needs to be the first scorer. I see that he's a guy that just wants to win. So it's really what is his best place to win. I don't think Miami gives him that because, again, Deion Waiters might be gone. Justice Winslow, what's really the future there? Is it really just going to be Gordon Hayward and he's the only building piece? I know Hassan Whiteside's fantastic, but how well do Whiteside and Gordon Hayward kind of play off of each other? Where you do look at Boston, Boston. You have Jaylen Brown. You do have I'm blanking on his name, Jason Tatum. You have a lot of young players. Marcus Smart, Avery Bradley's fairly young. Jay Crowder's fairly young. And while Isaiah Thomas might not come back, he is still around 28, 29 years old. And will at least will be next year. And then you also have, obviously, the Brooklyn picks and all the picks that Boston has loaded up. So there's still a ton of potential there for Boston to still be good. And then, if he's still a guy that wants to win and he's coming out of this 4 years contract, he can still get close to a max if he's still playing well and still be on a winning team and be the veteran leader of that team. So I would say that Miami's still that odd team out, hence the reason they got the first meeting and then Boston's getting the second meeting. I still think Boston, even though they don't have the state tax, or even they have the state tax, and I think you guys brought up a millionaire tax or something like that. Yeah. I still think that Boston might be the best fit, at least the best fit that Gordon Hayward sees for himself.
Yeah, personally, I think that, like you said, Miami is the unlikely choice. If he wants purely financial, you go with Miami because, again, you have the Whiteside is actually 28. I mean, he and Isaiah Thomas are the same age, so
yeah.
It was just because he came in the league.
Al Horford.
Oh, yeah, he is younger than Horford, but again, Whiteside came up through the D League. He was a project player, and he really exploded more recently.
Isaiah were drafted in the same draft, I'm pretty sure.
Entirely possible.
I'm pretty sure by the same team, too, by the Kings. I'm not kidding.
That's awful.
No, because he went to the Kings to the War. I'm not making shit up. I'm pretty sure they went in the same draft.
It's terrible to think about. Yeah. But yeah, no, and Whiteside's got that giant contract. I like Dragic, but again, he's 31 as well. So really, when your core of your team, the two standout players, are 28 and 31, you're looking at a very similar setup to what they have in Boston, except the upside in Miami is the fact that you would be their number one scoring option. Well, they did bring in, Deion Waiters last year, and we watched how he became like the de facto scorer. If they bring him back this year, that'll be a fantastic lineup and gives them a lot of dexterity. But honestly, the future there versus the future in Boston is so much greener. Well, I don't mean that as a bad pun, but the grass is greener in Boston.
And you also have Brad Stevens there. I mean, it's not like Eric Spoelstra's a bad coach.
I would take Spoelstra over Stevens.
I would definitely take Spoelstra over Stevens.
But then at least they have the connect. They have the prior connection.
Hayward's got the connection with them,
and it's not like Brad Stevens is a bum of a coach. I would still say they're both top 5, top 7
But when Brad
coaches.
Stevens wins in the playoffs, there's always we've been joking about how unsuccessful they had been up to this year in the playoffs. So,
but that's also, you got to look at the pieces around him. I think that they probably over-exceeded because of Brad Stevens and not under-succeeded because of his leadership.
Yeah, I mean, he took it to. We could frame it like
we're still commenting about both competent coaches, and it's like how high do they rank? And it's not like
you could
there's
say Brad Stevens took a team full of role players who over-exceeded their own expectations to become the number one seed in the East over LeBron James. That's a true statement. He took, Isaiah Thomas, who was the 60th overall pick in the draft, on a tiny contract. They're one big free agent signing of Al Horford, and then a bunch of great, B players and number one team in the East. So, I mean, he really did a fantastic job learning how to balance that roster and managing their time pretty well.
And helping Isaiah Thomas turn into a near 30-point per game score.
I mean, to be fair, he came in at like 16, 18. So, I mean, it was a jump, but still, it was like if we put the ball in his hands all day and abuse other teams on the pick and roll, there's not much people can do to stop him.
And then obviously Spoelstra had that second half that he, that you look at that crazy, fantastic second half. Again, we're picking hairs here. So, I mean, really, there's not that big of a difference between Spoelstra and Stevens coaching-wise, at least coaching level.
The question is, does the style benefit one or the other?
Well, to me, I'm not looking at the style. Yes, the style is important, but two things. First off, for your point where you were saying he took this team to overtake the 1 seed from the Cavs, I hear that and I go, it doesn't mean anything.
It's still true, though.
It's true.
It's how do you want to frame it?
It's true, but at the same time, I look at that and go, okay, the Cavs LeBron couldn't have never played a game. They could have walked in as the 8th seed.
I believe I've made this argument.
And LeBron would have went to the finals. It didn't matter what seed they were.
Again,
they
still had a great season outside of where they placed.
Even if they were the win-loss.
Even if they were number 2, they still had a great season.
My big thing moving forward, why if I'm Gordon Hayward, I like Miami a lot better than I do Boston, is actually two things. The lesser point, I'll start with that, is yes, Danny Ainge has a lot of draft picks. He's bringing in a lot of young players. But the young players that you bring in, the ones that you're getting right now because of the one and done, they're 19 years old. They're kids. They still haven't developed anything. They got to get into the league. They have to develop before they can contribute at a championship level, even if we're going to go to that far. The more major point that I like the Heat better is the sole fact of, if I sign with you, are you going to be able to bring in the pieces to put around me? Danny Ainge has not proven to do that. Look at how many free agents have passed on Boston. Pat Riley's a guy that'll get the job done and will get the guys to put around Gordon Hayward.
I don't disagree with that, but however, Hassan Whiteside just signed a max contract. Gordon Hayward's about to sign a max contract. So it's not like he's going to have a ton of room to go and get those guys.
Bosch's contract being eliminated is obviously the biggest thing out of this.
That's true. But then most of that money's going to go to Hayward.
Yeah. So, I mean...
And then you got to sign Dion Waiters, or you might sign Dion Waiters.
Yeah.
Goran Dragic has a year after this, and then a player option, which he's most likely going to decline because he can probably make more money. So then you have to pay him. Justice Winslow, his contract's going to come up at some point.
You got him locked up, though. RFA, but you can overpay
but
the
you're gonna pay for him, though.
Right.
It's not like it's not like a bad team's not going to throw money at Justice Winslow, and then you're going to have to match that offer sheet.
Yeah, that's always risky potential. I mean, the Nets, if they get bored, they'll go throw a max contract at anybody.
Tyler Johnson just signed with a large contract.
Yeah, that
there.
one is
it's
looking
not. It's
interesting.
not like they have a ton of cap. Yes, Pat Riley has the ability to get players there. We've seen that. LeBron James,
but he also is known to pull the trigger on a lot of trades to set his team up for the future. Look at the Goran Dragic trade.
What are the assets that he has?
It doesn't matter what the assets he has. Look at the Goran Dragic trade. He will make moves to set up future moves. And that's the thing. Pat Riley's always thinking about the next step. And that's why I love him as a basketball mind. He's someone who is never satisfied with what's on the table. He's always looking to make the team better for the future.
And that's why I think if Hayward signs with Miami, the reason why I kind of like put Dragic, like he's there, but he's the one that would be moved. He's the contract to me that would be moved. Or if Tyler
Johnson's probably
this year, if Tyler Johnson falls out, it's like, well, we overpaid for him. Pat Riley will find the guy that will basically take Tyler Johnson. And I have more confidence overall in Pat Riley than I do Danny Ainge.
I mean, I would say that Pat Riley is a bolder guy, and I think that he obviously has shown the skill to bring in free agents. I'm not saying that I'd take one over the other. I'm just saying that I look at Boston and they have more assets, and yes, you could say what are they doing with those assets? They haven't done anything, but those assets are still there. It's not like those assets disappear.
Right, your team has a ton of assets and you're winning at the same time.
Exactly, you're winning at the same time, and you have a ton of assets. And yes, you're talking about Jason Tatum and Jaylen Brown still developing and still being younger. However, it's not like those guys are too far away. Those are two number 3 overall picks. It's not like Jason Tatum isn't going to be able to come in and put up like 15 points per game in his first year because he's that good of a scorer.
The problem
if he gets the playing time. Yes.
Yeah, and that's the discussion is Gordon Hayward going to the Celtics means that they now have a backlog in the wing position. So we're either going to see them go with a lot of small ball lineups where they're going to run 3 wings out there, and that may work for them. Rebounding has always been the biggest problem for the Celtics team. Hayward not known for bringing rebounding from that position, though. So my concern is him going to the Celtics. While they are the better team right now, and they have the better future right now, I still don't know that they would push over the Cavs into the Warriors rather than the Miami Heat being a wild card of I trust in what they can do as a team and what that they could bring in potentially for the future to try to challenge for that position.
Well, and I don't even think of the Cavs being like what do we need to do to beat
you need to beat the Cavs because you got dad dicked by them up and down the street.
The reason why I'm not thinking about that
it doesn't matter. You watched the last regular season matchup.
Dave, I'm just saying he got hurt.
It wasn't close.
Dave, Jesus Christ, I'm just making the point that you got hurt because you two comments will yell at us. Shut up.
I'm saying the game in the end of the regular season even.
Okay, I know what you're saying. I'm saying
he wasn't hurt in that game.
Shut up.
LeBron probably might not even be there after next year. So to me, I'm already looking at you got to don't even worry about the Cavs because you got to get over them, but after you get over them, you got to get over the Warriors. And
that's what I'm saying. I'm mentioning both.
You focus on them first. I think you get over the Warriors, you can get over the Cavs.
All right. Well, obviously, it's tough to see what's going to happen next, and with those two teams.
We're just discounting Utah.
Well, that's what I'm trying to get to. Is with Utah. I mean, this is a team
it has to do with the West.
Okay,
though. It's so loaded.
Well,
now.
let me talk and transition. God damn it, it's my job. Utah here. Obviously, we both have them on our list. I mean, even though you're picking Miami and I'm saying Boston, I don't even know who you're saying out of the top 2.
Wild card.
Right, so you're saying Miami?
I'm saying Utah.
No, but I'm saying...
out of those two?
Out of those two, Boston or Miami, which one is more likely to win?
He's going to go Boston's more likely.
Okay, so Dave and I have Boston. Shocker, we agree. Podcast. You have Miami. We haven't talked about Utah at all. So let's look at Utah. Obviously, the West, like we mentioned to start off, has been reloaded. Jimmy Butler, Chris Paul, all changing teams. Blake Griffin's still there, just re-signed. Obviously, the Warriors, we've heard about them. They're fantastic. I've heard good things about them. The Spurs are still there. Grizzlies are still there. I mean, they still have Conley. They still have Gasol. Looking at this, obviously, there's a backlog of talent there in Utah. And it's not like Utah has suffered too much. They're most likely going to lose George Hill, but they brought in Ricky Rubio. They still have Rudy Gobert. They'll be keeping around Joe Ingles. They'll be keeping around Gordon Hayward. So how much does Gordon Hayward staying with Utah affect this team, and can they be a top 4, top 5 team like they were this year in the Western Conference with the changes?
I don't think they'd be a top 4 team because I think, to me, the top 4 teams...
I mean, it looks like the Clippers are falling out.
Yeah, the Clippers are falling out with the Rockets, and the Rockets, Thunder... Like, I could see the Thunder going from 6 to top 4 with Paul George. From 6 right now all the way to a top 4 team. I would say Warriors, Spurs, Rockets, and Thunder are right now my early top 4. But the thing with
there was only a game difference. I mean, they lost the tiebreaker to LA, so pretty much they were close to being a top 4 team, and there was only a 4-game difference though between OKC and Utah.
The thing that I look at Utah, which is tricky, is so if I'm in the mind of Gordon Hayward, it's okay. So I go there, I'm going to get the max deal. I'm going to get paid. Gobert's going to get paid. Rubio's getting 4.9, almost 15 mil. But then after next season, you got to find out how to keep Favors there. Are you going to keep Joe Johnson there? What are you going to do to bring in? Because you just gave a contract to Joe Ingles as well.
Well, Joe Johnson, I mean, he's getting older. And while Joe was fantastic in the playoffs, he definitely was. I got to mention that. Most likely his career is coming shorter and shorter, and I think he's not going to demand too much. And if he does demand too much, you can let him walk. And then with Derek Favors, Derek Favors didn't make that much of an impact this year. No. It wasn't like Derek Favors wasn't great the year before, but this year Derek Favors was banged up, and it wasn't like he was making a huge impact on this team that was the 5th team in the Western Conference. It's not like Derek Favors was impacting this team too much. You still look at the team that they're rolling out. I mean, you still have a ton of guards in that team. Exum, you have Rodney Hood, you still have Gordon Hayward, you still have Rudy Gobert. I mean, there's still a ton of talent on the Utah Jazz, and they're still bringing in talent. They shipped out Trey Lyles, but still brought in talent through the draft. So, I mean, I wouldn't worry too much about Derek Favors and Joe Johnson.
The thing that I just thought of, though, while you were talking is, yes, you can bring people. I think that the only way the Jazz are going to be able to bring in people they want is through trades, because out of the 3 teams, Miami, Boston, and Utah, if you told me, Ricky, you can go on a vacation out of those 3, I am definitely not choosing Utah out of the 3.
For sure. And no one's disagreeing with
big
there.
Free agents, it might be harder to bring in guys to, come to Utah where it's cold.
For sure. But with not even cold, I mean, it's just there's not a lot to do in Utah compared to Boston
that nightlife game,
Miami and huge metropolitan areas. But however you look at Gordon Hayward, it's not like he's going to Utah. I mean, he's staying in Utah. So it's something where it's not too hard to sell Gordon Hayward on Utah unless he hates Utah.
But it's the future of bringing guys in to play.
The whole point of bringing guys in is that you have guys there that they want to play with. And you have Gordon Hayward as a very likable guy in the NBA community. People can't speak highly enough of Ricky Rubio. I mean, there's problems with his game and his offensive ability to be a threat
or shoot
from the outside, so people don't take him seriously.
Great passer.
But yeah, he's a great passer, and who doesn't want to have passes literally like dished out to you perfectly? So I think, and Rudy Gobert, potentially the next he's defensive player of the year for the next 10 years. He's potentially there. So, I mean, honestly, you've got a really good lineup of these 3 guys. If he resigns, Joe Ingles, quality player as well. So.
And one thing, too, I mean, you look at this Utah team, and obviously you bring up the mention of the players around him, but Utah can draft. I mean, they brought in Rudy Gobert. Rudy Gobert, I think, wasn't drafted by them, but they traded for him, so it's not like they didn't see anything. They ended up trading for him on draft day. They obviously drafted Gordon Hayward. They brought in Exum. They brought in Burks. They brought in Nito as well. They just drafted Donovan Mitchell and traded up for him. They just got Nigel Williams-Goss, and they still saw Derek Favors, who was a guy that went high in the draft, but really kind of floundered early, brought him in, and then we saw what he did in 2015, 2016, and he really excelled there. So it's not like this team isn't bad at finding talent and developing them. I think they're very similar, at least to the way that the front office works, like Boston does, where you see the kind of the talent in players, like how they brought in Jay Crowder and really developed him from Dallas.
Right.
They see the talent in him and then work him into the system. So I think it's something where, yes, they might not go out and get a guy like a Paul George and be able to bring him in through free agency when he's a free agent, but they are able to develop talent, and I think that's something you got to give credit to Utah, and you got to give credit to Quinn Snyder too, because Quinn Snyder slept down as a coach, and I think he's fantastic.
Yeah.
So it's not like this team, it doesn't have the facilities, doesn't have the GM, doesn't have the coaching staff, and doesn't have the team and players that he's familiar with. So it's not like Utah. Obviously is at a huge disadvantage because, yes, they might not be able to bring in free agents, but they can still build talent around them. So ultimately, we got to wrap up this topic. Where will Gordon Hayward go? You got to pick one, Ricky. Is it going to be Utah, Miami, Boston? Is there going to be some random team that comes in?
I'm saying it's easy. It's Miami, and the reason being is two. First off, you get more money going to Miami because of the state tax situation. And number two, it's great to have draft picks either way, but when those draft picks are developing and it takes them 2 to 3 years to get to the level you need them to, they get there by the time your contract is almost over.
Mm-hmm. Dave, where is Gordon Hayward going to end up?
I think he's going to stay in Utah. I think it's a comfort, and I think it is the easy way out. If that had been
easy way out kind of sounds cowardly. It's not like he's not staying with his team.
He's taking
that
a lot of
drafted him.
money.
But is he staying? Is he taking a lot of money because it's a lot of money, or is he taking it because Utah's in a fairly decent shape?
Yeah, decent shape in a bubble. But
what do you mean by
perspective of the West and what your realistic odds are of setting yourself up for success in a championship, which is the ultimate goal in most people's minds in the NBA, I don't think they stand an honest chance this year or next year or the year after that.
However,
or the year after that.
So his entire career.
Let's look at this. Just because let's look at
the majority of his prime.
Yeah.
Let's look at the teams above him because he's going to be there for 5 years if he signs with Utah. We look at the mess out in Golden State. Obviously, I'm saying mess very loosely.
Okay.
There's going to be they're going to run into cap problems because Draymond's going to come up, Clay's going to come up. Steph just signed 5 years, $201 million max contract. KD's going to want more money at some point. It's not like he's going to keep taking one-year deals and one-year deals.
If they got unselfishness out of people, they'll always have ring chasers who are willing to sign for bare minimum. I think that's a team.
How much can that get them by? And
if you have an amazing culture, who knows?
Then also you look at Livingston and Andre Iguodala. They just signed for three more years, but it's not like those guys' bodies won't break down at some point.
Yeah, I mean,
he's a question mark. They just gave him a three-year deal, and his back's breaking down. So Golden State, while obviously yes, they're a huge powerhouse, and I don't want to take away from the talent they have on that team, there's a possibility that team in 5 years might not look the same.
In 5 years,
but he's still going to be on
after
contract.
His contract's over.
No, I'm saying in 5 years, in his last year of his contract, Golden State might not look the same. You look at San Antonio, yes, they can develop talent. Yes, they can bring in talent. And they have Kawhi Leonard. But you look at that team, that's an older team. They weren't able to go get a huge free agent this year. They have George Hill, or they just brought back Patty Mills. But it's not like Patty Mills is going to be your number two. It's not like LaMarcus Aldridge is going to be there in 5 years. It's not like Paul Gasol is going to be there in 5 years, even though he just declined his player option for some reason. But you look at that team.
Team-friendly contract.
And also, Pop's getting older. So it's not like Pop is going to be gone, but still there's that possibility in 5 years that the Spurs might not be as high as they are. You look at Houston, James Harden's fantastic. Chris Paul's getting older. You look at L.A., they're falling apart. They're falling back. You look at Minnesota, they're obviously a rising team.
That's where I think they're going to get overtaken.
Where's Jimmy Butler going to be? Where's Jimmy Butler going to be?
Wherever Tom Thibodeau is.
Phoenix were very high.
Apparently wants to bring guys in.
Phoenix were very high on.
Yeah,
we're very high on, but are they going to be there in 5 years? LA, are they going to be there in 5 years?
Obviously, they will be.
Obviously, at the market. But then again, Utah, with being a veteran team at this point, with Rudy Gobert, with Gordon Hayward, you'd think that they'd be able to at least fight there in the Western Conference because it's not like they're at a disadvantage right now. Yes, I don't think they're going to win a championship in the next 3 years because of Golden State, but which team is? It's not like Boston's going to win one in the next 3 years. It's not like Miami's going to win one in the next 3 years. So why not take the money? Why not stay in a place where you're comfortable in? And why not at least be competitive in one of the craziest conferences we've ever seen?
Yeah, I mean,
it's not like he's not competing in the West. He's still competing in the West.
Yeah, and this is a team that absolutely can compete in the playoffs. I'm afraid that they're just going to be, and we talked about about the purgatory of the NBA when you're stuck in the not quite good enough to be a playoff team, not quite bad enough to get that top 5 lottery pick. This is a different level because you're going to make the playoffs, but you know you're not going to be able to compete. As much as I love Gobert and how much of an impact he has on the game, you can't win today's game playing around a big as your best player. Gordon Hayward is excellent and at the most impactful position of today's NBA.
I would say Gordon Hayward's good enough to at least compete. And I think he would still be your number one because Rudy Gobert's fantastic.
The problem is when your number 1 is not better than the number 3 on the best team, then what do you do?
I mean, but also look at every other team and which number 1 is better than a Klay Thompson.
The age of this team is older, like you said. They're mid-20s. This is not a team like we're looking at with the Suns or the Timberwolves.
Their prime at the same time.
And I understand and I respect that, but when I see them being jumped by the Suns and Timberwolves because of the potential, because of all the right things lined up for those teams, I can see those teams having extended runs. And unless this team hits a absolute magnificent draft pick or a steal somewhere, I just see them staying in the we're going to be a 5, 6, 7. I mean, maybe they'll get to a 4 or 3 in the playoffs. Yeah. Still, my concern is they're never going to have the right stars alignment moment for them to take a championship run.
And I mean, before you made your point, don't forget about the Lakers, what we talked about yesterday. They're a younger team, but if they get those big free agents, they could boost themselves into the discussion as well.
And for sure. But also, you look at that Laker team, and I mean, it's been a while since they brought in a huge free agent. It's been a while since they brought in a huge free agent, obviously because of the Kobe kind of purgatory they put him in. But anyways,
they put him in or Kobe put him in?
Kobe put him in. Anyways, let's just kind of wrap this up because I think and this might be a discussion that we get into a little bit later with the conferences. I still think that at least you're competing in the West because it's not like any team's not in purgatory, playoff purgatory, because it's like the Cavs are pretty much in playoff purgatory because they still got to play the fucking Golden State Warriors. Golden State's winning the next 3 finals. It's not like Utah's going to give them a shot. It's not like any other team's going to give them a shot. It's not like Paul George and Russell Westbrook's going to give him a shot. I love Russ. I love Paul George. And it's a perfect player because I haven't been able to talk about this. So I want to talk about it. But Russell Westbrook has a perfect player to play next to him because we talked about it a little bit how with the Rockets and PG-13 that he's not a super ball handle guy, but he can do well with the ball in his hand. It's a perfect guy because he's going to play defense and be able to shoot. So, but I don't think those two are going to be able to jump a team like the Warriors. I mean, every team is in playoff purgatory right now. And yes, the Lakers and Minnesota have higher ceilings than the Jazz, but the Jazz are pretty much already at or close to their ceiling.
That's the concern.
However, we look at what might happen and what might crawl above them. They might be able to slip up and come up and hit that level where Minnesota might fall apart. Cat, knock on wood for all those Timberwolves fans, might get hurt. Jimmy Butler might not end up being an effective player. There might be only 3 players in Minnesota and no one else might be effective on the team. Jeff Teague wasn't great in Indiana, so if that's your 4th best player, what's going to happen there? And then you also look at the Lakers. What if they get those, or what if they don't get those?
Right. There's a
players?
pretty big difference between the two.
So, I mean, there's a lot of things that can happen. And even with Paul George might not even be in OKC next year. So, I think what will happen, Gordon Hayward will become a Boston Celtic. That's what I feel. I just feel like the East is more wide open. Brad Stevens and him are a perfect pair, and there's still a huge future there. And he could be a Celtic for the rest of his life there because he's still going to get money. He's still going to be the guy that people go to and look at. And I still think he could be a player that's going to be effective deep into his career. But anyways, those are our final thoughts. You're saying Miami?
Utah.
You're saying Utah? You're
Miami.
saying Miami. Oh, you said he was the coward way out. Yeah. That's what it was. Anyways,